Hello, folks. If you are just joining us, we're going to get started in a minute here with Flippin' the Script with Lawrence Bennett. I'm so excited. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds or a minute.
How are you this evening?
I'm living the dream because I'm here with you. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking.
And you matched our background completely on purpose.
Completely on purpose.
All right, well, we will get started here. Hello, everyone. My name is Amelia Acosta-Powell. I serve as the Associate Artistic Director at the Repertory Theater of St. Louis. It is my great pleasure to be here today with Lawrence Bennett, Director of Production at the Rep. Hello, Larry.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well. I'm so happy to have you here. As you know, this is our platform for introducing the Rep's constituents to the amazing people who make our work possible. And you, of course, are one of the main people who make our shows happen. So I'm so excited for folks to get to hear a little bit about you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to folks.
Yay. Let's just start with, can you introduce yourself? Tell us what your role is, how long you've been at the Rep, and anything unique about yourself that people might not know.
Yes, ma'am. Again, my name is Lawrence Larry Bennett. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Director of Production at the Repertory Theater of St. Louis, going into my second year here with the organization. One fun fact that folks don't know about me is I am one half of the 2003 International Thespian Festival Duet Pantomime Champion. So that is something that most folks don't know about me.
Okay, I did not know that. That's an incredible fun fact. I love that. And can we see a little bit of it?
I haven't pantomimed or mimed in years, and even then I wasn't very well trained. But one day I'll pull up a video and I'll show you some of my miming.
Excellent. I look forward to that. I also feel like what I heard you say is you need a little bit of time to brush up and rehearse, but then you absolutely rejoin us on Flippin' the Script for a follow-up where you will perform the pantomime. So everybody get excited about that.
Well, you know, nothing's impossible. I will say that.
That's so true. You're the Director of Production. Can you tell us what a Director of Production does? What are your responsibilities?
Yes, ma'am. So I am in charge of the production department, which encompasses the scene shop, the prop shop, the costume shop, the lighting shop, the sound shop, and our media department. So basically everything from a backstage perspective, not including the actors and people who perform on the stage. So I oversee all of those aspects for the production, making sure that when we get designs in from the designers, that they come in on time, making sure that they can be produced in a timely fashion on budget as allocated by our upper administration, and then making sure that everyone has what they need to be successful throughout the process, making sure the communication is flowing properly, making sure that everyone has the materials and access to information to do their job as swiftly and as appropriately as possible, and make sure that the process is smooth. So I am often the face between the organization and our guest artists, again, whether those are the designers, directors, etc., and make sure that we put on a fantastic product at the end of the day.
And we do. I think we hear a lot about how people's favorite things about the Rep are the incredible costumes or the beautifully painted sets. So all that falls in your world.
Yes, ma'am. You know, we have a wonderful set of artists working on our staff who are in charge of making a two-dimensional design, a three-dimensional phenomenon. And their artistry is, in my opinion, second to none. And so being able to get a design from world-renowned Broadway designers and execute that to a level that I will put up against anyone in the country is no small feat. And I think that we do a lot of fantastic work here at the Repertory Theater.
We do, absolutely. Shout out to your incredible team. You oversee just a fabulous staff, and I agree, they're top in the country. You said something incredible that I wish I could quote verbatim about taking a two-dimensional design and making a three-dimensional phenomenon. For people who might be watching who aren't as familiar with the design process. Can you just explain more like what we would receive, what you would receive from the designers, and then what your team would do with that?
Absolutely. So again, we would engage a group of designers for the creative process for our production. So for example, if we were doing Angels in America, which we opened with last year, we would get a set of drawings or designs from each of the designers to produce. So the set designer would create a set of drafting plates, which has what he thinks the set wants to be and how we would execute it to get to the finished product that you see on stage. Same with the costumes. We get costume sketches from the costume designer, including swatches and what their vision of those set of clothing would be. And that would be multiplied over across the rest of the disciplines. And so what we would do is once we get those designs, our fantastic staff then takes those into their hands and make sure that we can execute those swiftly, safely, and properly. So there's a lot of physics involved. There's a lot of math involved when you're talking about the set aspect. There's a lot of shopping involved, a lot of sewing and tailoring from the costume aspect, and making sure that we can do their two-dimensional drawings in the three-dimensional world. And so we take that idea, as you might have heard from various sources, from page to stage, and we take that from a two-dimensional playing space to a three-dimensional playing space, being able to execute their designs in a real-world fashion, safely, uniquely, and as swiftly as our hands will carry us.
Thank you for that. Such a good detailed description. I want to highlight something you said for the kids watching at home, because you mentioned there's a lot of math involved. I don't know if anyone else out there is like me, thinking that, oh, I'll just be in the arts, I'll avoid the math and science. There is so much math. I feel duped.
There's a lot of math in the scene shop, a lot of physics, a lot of algebra, a lot of calculus and trigonometry. It's not just 1 + 1 makes 2 often. I wish it was to make our jobs a lot easier, but oftentimes it's not.
So speaking of being a youth dreaming of being a theater artist, everybody loves a good origin story. Will you tell us how you got into theater in the first place?
That's an excellent question. Depending on who you ask, my father was in the arts. He's done a lot of theater, a lot of movies, commercials, TV shows, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you ask those in my family, I got the bug from my father, who again was very much in the arts and very involved. He was in a movie in the 90s called Curly Sue. He was in Dennis the Menace. He's done commercials where he was featuring voices on little handheld video games of Power Rangers back in the day. So I did grow up seeing that with him. But I, as I imagine most people, just happened into theater because I needed an art credit when I was in middle school. I got into middle school, and you could take theater, or you can take band, or you could take art to satisfy your art credit. And just by a throw of the dart, I ended up in a theater class. So while I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I had one theater teacher, Mr. Troy Min, who was phenomenal and really kind of gave me a passion for the arts to continue while I was in high school. I did hit a crux in the road where, because I grew up in Texas and I am of large stature, that I decided to play football my freshman year of high school as opposed to doing theater. I began playing football. I swiftly realized I hated football because I didn't like working out what we call two-a-days, where you work out in the morning and after school, and running in that Texas heat. That was not something I really wanted to do. So I gave football about a semester before I turned in my cleats and got into the theater program at my high school. And from there, much like everyone else, I began as an actor, working a lot on stage as much as I could. But we had a policy that if you weren't on stage, you were backstage. And so whenever I wasn't able to get a part, I was working in the scene shop. I was working in our lighting department. I was, working in our costume shop. We sort of did it all in my high school days. And I did that all 4 years. And I was very involved in my theater program. I was an officer 3.5 of those 4 years, where I was what was called the permanent stage crew head, which means I was in charge of a lot of the tech work for the productions we did, as well as being the vice president for 2 years, where I was helping to run the program from the student perspective, make sure the program ran as swiftly and as well as it could. Even with all that being said, I still was going to school to be a lawyer. Actually, I had no idea that you could major in theater until my theater director said, "Hey, you know you can go to school for this, and there are great jobs out there in the arts." And my junior year, towards the end of my junior year, right before I was going to attend the Texas Thespian State Festival, we put together a portfolio, and started to actually look at colleges and universities from a theater lens. And so I then realized that I was going to change the sort of trajectory of my life. And I went to school in theater. I also I went to undergrad at Webster University, which is here in St. Louis, associated with the Repertory Theater of St. Louis. So I was there for 4 years. That led me to going to graduate school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. Go Badgers. We had an alum, David Stewart, who is a titan in our industry, is an alum of Webster University and one of my closest friends and mentors. And he, at the time, was the production manager at the University of Wisconsin. And so I studied under him and Dennis Dorn. Dennis Dorn is one of the preeminent TDs in the theater industry. He literally wrote the textbook on drafting. And I studied under him because at the time I was a technical director. So I was able to study under those two fantastic gentlemen for my 3 years at undergraduate. And then I actually began my career in the theater industry teaching, because right when I graduated, we were still in that really terrible recession when the housing bubble burst. And the only people who were hiring were higher ed or high school jobs. So I began working as an academic technical director for about 10 years, working at University of Wisconsin, River Falls, working at the University of South Florida, and then also working at the University of Texas before making the switch to production management, and then working at Baltimore Center Stage, which is another LORT regional theater, and then making my way here towards the Repertory Theater of St. Louis.
An amazing journey, and it all begins with the pantomime.
It all begins with the pantomime. I'm never going to live that down.
I'm so glad to have this information now. You did go to Webster, which is awesome. You also now teach at Webster, and I'm curious, what do you teach, and how do we get an A in your class?
That's an excellent question. I co-teach production management seminar with the wonderful Tracy Uttemeyers, who is the production manager at the Muni here in St. Louis. And then next semester, I will be co-teaching also with Tracy BFA seminar, which is a class for the graduating seniors to prepare them for work out after they graduate. So it's about resumes and portfolios and websites and auditioning and things of that nature to really get them prepped for the next step. How do you get an A? That's a fantastic question. When I was teaching much earlier in my career, I was famous for telling all my students, when you walk into my class, you walk in with a C. A C is average, right? I don't know you. I don't know what you're capable of. And, if you just do the bare minimum, you get the bare minimum, right? I'm not in charge of your grades. If you put in some effort, then that C becomes a B. And if you put in exceptional effort, that B becomes an A. And so I want to see you go on a journey from someone who came into my class with expectations of a general student and then leave my class with my exceptional expectation of you as a human being. I don't necessarily put stock in you knowing the X's and O's of the subject. I don't really need you to regurgitate the lessons outside of the class. What I really hope that you walk out with is how to think critically, how to look at a problem and analyze a problem and come up with a solution that is the best possible of all outcomes, right? You can always look into a book for answers. You can always use reference materials to help you in your journey. But if you're able to think critically and analyze the situation and be able to act appropriately, I think that is the greatest gift that any educator can give to a student. And so how do you get an A in my class? being able to think critically and analytically and then apply that.
Well, I can tell I'm only going to get a B, so it's fine. I love everything about that. And I think it's so beautiful to hear your story, your origin story, that particularly highlighted teachers and mentors, right? Because we are in a hands-on applied industry. I believe you can't learn to be a good theater artist from a book, right? You have to learn it collaboratively. And now you're passing that along. And I just think that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. Also, we could not have more different grading philosophies. I also taught at Webster this semester, and I immediately open with, I have absolutely no interest in grades. And if you're in it for an A, you can have an A, but you should be in it for something more useful than that, like actually learning how to be a good actor.
It's a great philosophy.
And person.
It's a great philosophy.
I think they work in tandem. We both are
I agree.
Be a good human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, I think that's all anyone cares about, is how to be a good person at your core.
Certainly. And in case any of our students are watching, just a reminder that we will remember if you're not. So
Absolutely.
Never be a jerk to anyone ever. That goes on the
Ever.
record.
The theater industry is about 3 people big, and everyone knows everyone.
That's right. Now they know. So you had said that you're in your 2nd year at the Rep, but now that we also understand your history as a Webster student, you've actually been around the Rep longer than that. So I'm curious, what are your top favorite productions that you've ever seen and or worked at the Rep of all time?
Wow. You know, that's a great question. The first one that jumps out to me is one of the shows we did this year called Feeding Beatrice. And the reason why it was one of my favorites is because I thought it looked phenomenal. It was a show we produced in our studio space, and we were able to make that an interactive theater that really encompasses not only the entire architecture of the studio space, but also the audience as well, into the world of Feeding Beatrice. And that's something that I had never seen before at my time at the Rep. And the minute you walked into the theater, you were immersed in our created environment, and it looked beautiful. It really reminded me of, like The Shining, when you started to get the kind of creepy crawls from the hotel and being able to look down those hallways, and the lights were flickering, and all the things we did to put you in that kind of spooky mood, I thought was phenomenal. So it's one of the first shows that really sort of jump out at me.
I agree. That show that your team just built an incredible world for that show.
The second show, I would say, I'll give you 3. I might give you 4, but I'll give you 3 for sure. The second show that comes out to me is Dreaming Zenzile, which is actually a show that we didn't get to fully finish because of the pandemic. But one of my fondest memories of that show is being in one of the rehearsal rooms during the production rehearsal process and hearing them sing, and it filling the rafters with the passion and the joy that they brought. I was moved from my head to my feet. And let me just say, I am a theater person, right? I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now at this point. And there are very few shows that excite me to the level that Dreaming Zenzile excited me. And I am still to this day sad that we weren't able to see it to its completion. But it was that the music was just phenomenal. So that was something that will always carry with me. From my times before, when I was a Webster student, I got the opportunity to overhire on many Rep productions. And one of the ones was one of the first shows I worked on when I got to the conservatory was Metamorphoses. And that show was really cool because we put a giant pool on stage. And at that point, coming out of high school and not being exposed to a lot of professional art, I was blown away about putting this, I can't remember how big it was, 30 by 30 pull on the stage and making sure it didn't leak and making sure that the temperature was right, and then it was sanitized, and how do you track the actors on and off, and everything that really went into that engineering was just phenomenal. So that really kind of blew my socks off. Was working on Metamorphoses, and just as an overhire, I mean, I was push this box and load this in and put this over here and help me put this water in and things of that nature. So those are the few that come to my mind sort of immediately.
I don't know if you've been watching the previous episodes of Flippin' the Script, but you're either the third or fourth person to bring up Metamorphoses. So clearly that production changed lives. Shout out to everybody who worked on the reps Metamorphoses.
It was a great production. I mean, again, I was a youngster. I was 18 or 19. And just seeing it get loaded in and put on stage, and seeing it become a reality, and then watching that show, I mean, it literally blew my socks off at that time. So, yeah, it was a great show. It was a great show.
I mean, I think it's also a beautiful show. Well, maybe it's not obvious. I did not get to see the reps production, but it certainly was a life-changing event when I first saw production as well elsewhere. It's a beautiful, beautiful play. And I will also affirm your shout out for Dreaming Zenzile. I am so sad that we didn't get a chance to share it with audiences, but I look forward to the day when we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is a little bit callback to what we were talking about before with the students, but if you had one best piece of advice to give to someone who's starting out their career, either wanting to be a director of production, a TD, a technical director, or teach technical theater, all these areas of expertise you have, what advice would you give?
That there is no one size fit all answer, right? There are several pieces of advice that I wish I would have received in my, coming of age. But if I had to narrow it down to one or two pieces of advice, the first thing I do say, and I tell students often, is take a business class. The one thing I wish I would have done in my formal education is take more business classes, being able to have a mind and an understanding about how organizations and how commerce and how finance works outside of making and producing theater, right? There's a reason they call it show business. And, just having a passion for the arts, and or the actors and or the music and or the execution of the design, there is a whole other half of it that needs attention, and it actually is probably just as important of the heartbeat of the theater. So taking business classes and having a mind for how organizations operate, especially if you're trying to go into the not-for-profit sector, or even if you're going into the commercial sector, that is probably the biggest thing I wish I would have done, and someone would have told me to do, was to take more business classes. And then I guess alongside with that, take classes in computer science, in that not necessarily learn how to code, although I think that's a great skill, but in learning how to manipulate Microsoft Office and Suite, and Photoshop and Adobe and Illustrator, and now SketchUp, which is a thing, or any kind of computer aided drafting programs, right? There's a language to these computing programs that we use day in and day out in the theater industry, that a lot of people get skills from secondhand, right? Because they were thrown into a situation, they had to figure it out, and they made a lot of mistakes along the way, and so now they have a way and a craft of doing it. But if there was an opportunity to be formally trained and have that training, I think that is the sort of the second thing I would point to. But taking the time to really set your foundation in business and computing is, I would offer to anyone, as they are starting their careers.
I totally agree with that, even though I have no idea what you're talking about being thrown into situations. That's never happened to us.
Not once.
But yes, 100%. And I don't think that's specific to theater, actually. Like, I wish I had taken a business class for any number of reasons. Like, I think it applies to any career, but also to your life.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
It's just a good thing to do. I have a couple more questions for you, but I want to also just throw out there, if you are watching live on Facebook or YouTube and you have a question for Lawrence Larry Bennett, you should put it into either the comments on Facebook or the chat on YouTube, and we will answer it.
Absolutely. Fire away.
Ask him anything.
I'm an open book.
In the meantime, if you could change one thing about our industry, the theater industry, what would you change?
That is an excellent question as well. If I could change just one thing in the industry, I think I would change this notion that the product prevails above all, right? There is this mantra in the theater that the show must go on, right? And in that mantra, it's often at the expense of a lot of people who aren't the highest paid or the best compensated, and oftentimes are the most folks who are taken the most advantage of. And so if I could change one thing, it would be that this industry was more equitable about its treatment of its workers, and that, for us to remember, it's not brain surgery, we're not saving lives, it's not, our decisions don't, hinge on someone's survival or anything of that nature. And I would put into perspective that everyone deserves to be off the clock. And that is oftentimes not used in our industry, at least to date, I will say. So if I could change one thing right now, would really to be from under this moniker that the show must go on above all costs, and really institute some work-life balance in this industry. That would be where I'd start.
That's beautiful. I totally agree with that too. It's almost like we're in alignment. But I think it's, it's hard, right? Because depending on when something comes up, right? We always want to give you, the audience, what you came to see. We always want to brighten your day, entertain you. We want to do the show. Everyone always wants to do the show. Even, people are
even at their detriment. Yeah.
Yeah. Sick and vomiting. And they're like, no, I can do it.
And I think that's
don't want the show to go on, but I think you're right. There are some conditions under which we should reconsider that.
No, absolutely. And I think that you raise a really excellent point, right? Everyone wants to do the show, right? And oftentimes people will set aside their, personal lives or health to make sure that they do get the best product possible for the audiences. But as I often say, right, that should be the exception and not the rule, right? It should be expected that we're going to give you the best product within the confines of work-life balance. But if we had to, pull some late nights or do some extra work or go that extra mile, as they say, to make sure that this particular product, whether it's a show or an event or what have you, is successful, I think that's fantastic. But again, that should be the exception, not the rule, right? So if you're doing 10 productions, if one production you had that quote unquote go that extra mile, then you still had 9 that were under the guise of work-life balance. And I think that's, not unreasonable to ask for.
Yeah, completely. This is a direct tie to my next question, and you'll see why. Because some people will tell you with pride their horror stories, right, of times that they made the show go on even though conditions were rough, right? And we probably both know a lot of people who will tell you, like, I did a show on my wedding day. I did a show the day that my son was born. But you're not going to do a show the day your son is born, which is coming up so soon.
It is.
You're having a baby. Tell us what you're thinking about.
Yeah, my partner's expecting our first son. He is expected around January the 10th, 2021. And so far, everything points to everything going well. The doctors are saying he's healthy and, 10 fingers, 10 toes. My wife is doing well. She's healthy. 10 Fingers and 10 Toes. And we are excitedly awaiting his arrival. What am I thinking?
You're already ready for that. You just introduced him as your first son. You're awaiting his brother's arrival. What the heck?
Well, listen, I'm ready for all the kids. No, kidding. The things I'm thinking about are reading the books that my partner Dominica has told me to read that I have not yet read that I need to get on lickety split, and making sure that our nursery gets completed. She is making sure my honey-do list stays on track and not just slipping by the wayside. So it's making sure that all of our cribs and dressers and what is it called, pop and plays are ready to go. Pack and play, I think it's called.
No, it's a pack and play.
Pack and play. See, there it is. To be ready for his arrival. So I am excited about seeing him and being a parent and making all the mistakes and raising this human to be the best person that they can be. It is daunting, it is scary, but I am over the moon about this opportunity. And I just cannot wait to meet the little one. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
I cannot wait to meet him either. I'm so excited. I think the viewers can already tell from your answers what an incredible parent you're going to be, because you lead with so much generosity and care for the human. So we're really excited for you too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Last call, viewers. If you have any questions before we go into our lightning round, now is the time to ask those. Put those in either the comments or the chat. Otherwise, it just goes to show that I've asked all the interesting questions.
You have. They've been great questions.
I wish I could take credit, but in fact, someone else writes them. I just ask them. Shout out to Ashton Beck, the Reps social media expert, who must
shout out.
Flip in the script. His favorite, I'm sure. Oh, Adina's ready. Adina says go for the lightning round, so we're gonna do it. We like to call this section of the show Fun Facts in 60 Seconds. So we're going to put 60 seconds on the clock, and then I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and you have to answer as quickly as you can to get through as many as you can. So don't think too hard about it. Just the first thing that comes to mind, speak the truth, and say something cute while I pull up a timer that I didn't pre-prepare.
Oh, no problem. I'm excited for the lightning round. Lightning and
perfect. Great. We're okay. Ready? Set. Go. What's your favorite holiday food?
Turkey.
New Year's Eve or Christmas?
Christmas.
Favorite TV show?
Oh, used to be The Simpsons.
Favorite board game?
Monopoly.
Favorite season of the year?
Fall.
Favorite color?
Orange.
Favorite play?
Oh, I don't know. Pass.
Okay. Most song you listened to most recently?
A Change Gonna Come.
Favorite vacation?
Jamaica.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Happy.
Oh, newspaper or magazine?
Newspaper, magazine.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Puppies or kittens?
Puppies, hands down.
And that's 60 seconds. I think that might have been the record. I actually haven't been counting. I'm going to have to go back through the episodes and count. But I have learned that people cannot quickly answer their favorite play, and I need to eliminate that from the list, even though we are all theater makers. That is where everybody loses time.
You know, it's interesting because I have a favorite play that I've worked on, but wasn't necessarily my favorite play. And then I have a play that I've seen that I didn't work on. So I was like, oh, I don't know which way to go with that. I don't want to waste time. So I was like, pass.
Okay.
So that's where my thought process was.
Okay. Maybe I should change it to favorite script. Favorite play script.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is fine. I think that some people will have their reasons one way or the other, but again, I like a play sometimes because I worked on it because I learned a cool thing. It makes it care for the script, but then I might have saw a play that was phenomenal that I had nothing to do with. So I think the question's fine. Maybe just move it lower on your list.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback. Now everyone has participated in that. Thank you all for that feedback. Thank you so much for joining us, Larry. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you all for watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this later. We really appreciate the chance to just introduce ourselves to you, let you know the humans behind the scene who make all of the plays at the Rep possible. And we cannot wait to actually be in a room with you again. But until then, we miss you. We love engaging with you in this way. And we will be back, not next Thursday, but the Thursday after that with another installment of Flippin' the Script. So please join us in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.